The New York Jets have a new head coach. It is former Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. The Raiders have a GM, and the Jaguars no longer have a GM. All that and more. Coaching carousel continues to spin around the NFL on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there, and welcome to the new listeners. Let us know you stopped through. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube or just hit the thumbs up to say hi. And of course, you can subscribe anywhere you are listening to this podcast. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Aaron Glenn, the reports were that the Jets didn't want to let him leave, and they closed the deal on Aaron Glenn. He is not going to have an opportunity to become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, who were clearly also interested in Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn is now the new head coach of the New York Jets. What are your thoughts about this from the Aaron Glenn angle and from the New York Jets angle, Matt, now that we have another domino falling on the NFL coaching cycle?
Yeah, and I guess not unexpected. He has a wonderful reputation. He's familiar with the organization. Does it surprise you that they kind of just been having a string here of defensive coaches? I mean, it's not like they have this young quarterback to develop. I don't know what their quarterback situation is. I mean, there's a couple teams that are in really QB no man's land, but maybe the Jets more than anybody. But I guess we'll see who his hires are and all those type of things as well. But by all respect and what he did with that Lions defense, I'm real impressed.
Be interesting to see how he puts together his staff, because the first question anytime you hire a defensive head coach is who's going to be your offensive coordinator? What is the offense going to be? And that's where the Jets struggled previously with Robert Saleh, because the defense was awesome. Offense couldn't hang. And even when they brought in a future Hall of Fame quarterback, it still wasn't right for the New York Jets. Do they try to go one more go with Aaron Rodgers and see how that plays out in year one and then implement a new plan for year two? The Jets are drafting in a place where they could potentially get a young quarterback at pick number, they're 7 overall, right, in the NFL draft. And I wonder if part of that
striking distance, at least, I
would imagine if you hired Aaron Glenn, you're really convinced in what his offensive plan was, as well as how he's going to navigate things on the defensive side of the ball, because you should believe in him as a defensive coach. The question becomes, okay, how's the offense going to come along with that? Because that's been their problem, and I don't know what the answers are. We'll find out who's the next guy up in Detroit, because has Detroit hired an offensive coordinator yet? And then are they going to lose another offense? Like, Detroit's just going to get hammered with their assistant coaches from both sides of the ball, because Glenn's going to want to bring in guys. They're going to try to promote guys to replace Glenn and Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson's going to want to bring players. And so I wonder if they've got some handshake agreements there with Dan Campbell about, okay, you can take this guy, but if you take him, can't take him. A lot of behind the scenes back channeling going on right now in the NFL.
Yeah, and again, I would be concerned from the Lions' perspective. I mean, you finished the season on a down note. Okay, that happens to 31 teams, but expectations were high, and you lost both coordinators somewhat expectedly, but you're going to lose a lot of assistants too. And I think Campbell's a great coach, but I don't think he's a schemer. I think he's a motivator. He's a leader. And that's great.
All plays on either side of the ball.
Right. So who's gonna? I mean, there's definitely going to be some change. But I like the hire for the Jets. I'm curious what else they do. OC, quarterback. They definitely have some players in place. I mean, are they going to be trading guys like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, or are they going to just try to add to them? I would imagine you try to add to them, but where's the quarterback come from?
Yeah, I would imagine part of the selling point is like, oh, look, you guys are still good, and it's going to be year 3 of this with the Jets, where you go in and like on paper we should be pretty good, and then oh, guys, I guess we're not that good still, and then you hope that's not what it is, and obviously you change head coach, but potentially change some identity, but not changing ownership. So we'll see. We'll see how things. I'm skeptical of where things go here with the New York Jets, even though I think I like Aaron Glenn. What is he going to change for a team that already had a good defense and can't figure things out on offense and can't build a football team? Can they build that thing finally?
I would be real shocked if we're talking about the Jets of, boy, what an amazing offseason. They're ready to challenge the Bills or, knocking on the door as a playoff team next year. It seems like it's going to be a step back season, even if Glenn is coach of the year. You know what I mean? Even if he's the guy. It just seems like I can't imagine after going all in years, pushing your chips in with Aaron Rodgers, Tyron Smith, and some of these older dudes like that they're going to be able to have a roster that is playoff worthy, the 5 or 6 stars aside.
Well, the defense is playoff worthy. And
yeah,
the question is do you tear down the offense completely? Because if Rodgers is back, then they're telling you we're going to try to give it a run. And if Rodgers is not back, they're telling you we're going to tear this thing down. And so which way do they go? It's really A or B. You're either going for it or you're tearing it down.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be Tyrod Taylor, but it could be Tyrod Taylor and a pick.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the Jaguars. But you just mentioned the connection with Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets organization. He's been there. They know him. And I'm sure whatever coaching staff and, the organization that's put together around Aaron Glenn, he's going to have connections to those people. The Raiders have hired John Spytek as their next general manager. Connections, right?
Yeah.
Tom Brady's former assistant GM with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think Tom Brady does have some say here because we were kind of wondering. It's like, all right, Tom Brady, is he, first of all, the conflict of interest for a guy who's broadcasting games and his ownership and has say what's going on in one of the franchises? It's still very strange to me. And to be honest with you, Tom Brady might be a better executive than he is a broadcaster at some point. We'll find out how long that lasts.
I bet he'd like it better too, just being part of a team and winning and competing.
That's what John Lynch said. John Lynch left a cushy TV job. He's like, I'm competitive. I can't just sit by and watch. Like, I want to have some skin in the game. And I wonder if Tom Brady, and he's wired similarly, right? I wouldn't be shocked at all if he just basically takes over. He's president of that football team at some point very soon, rather than being a broadcaster and just dipping his toe in. And clearly, he has some say. So now, what's the connection for head coach for the Raiders? Liam Cohen removed his name from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the report was that he's probably likely to be a high-paid offensive coordinator one more year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But according to reports, he hasn't signed that contract extension yet to stay on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we'll talk about the Jaguars coming up here in a second. The Jaguars have fired their general manager, Trent Baalke. Could Liam Cohen double back still with the Jaguars if that was a big sticking point for him? Could the Raiders throw their hat in the ring with Liam Cohen? And could he come with the assistant GM from Tampa, connections, knows him, and be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, man?
Really interesting. I mean, I think the first thing to unpack, or that it has been revealed, is kind of what you mentioned, is I don't think Brady's going to be a silent partner. I think it's pretty clear that he's going to be listened to and carry some weight, which why would you not? You know what I mean? If you're the Davis family that's been really struggling at this for about 20 years, since Al was in his prime, let's go get a big time football dude and at least listen. And I think that's a great start. We know they need a quarterback. I would imagine Brady will watch some quarterback tape and have some thoughts on a head coach as well. I hadn't thought of the Cohen angle until you mentioned it, right before we hit record. Adds up, though. I mean, it absolutely adds up. And the name I keep hearing a quarterback for them is Sam Darnold. And could they turn him into a Baker Mayfield reclamation project in a Buck-like manner? This story's kind of writing itself,
Absolutely, yeah. The offense, Cohen, like Kevin O'Connell, came from the Sean McVay tree of coaches. So obviously a natural fit with Sam Darnold to come in there and play. You don't have to force things at quarterback in this draft. If you don't love who's going to be there for you early in the first round, or don't think one of those quarterbacks is worth it, you still draft and develop a guy a little bit later. Sam Darnold's probably more than a stopgap, but not we're never going to look for another quarterback for the next half a decade guy. Great fit and potentially a quicker turnaround there on offense, like we saw with Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, O'Connell could be the back. I mean, going with Donald and O'Connell, and maybe draft one next year if that's not a great experiment, or if it hits like Baker, you roll with it. And Mel Kiper has put out his latest mock. I think he had the Raiders taking one of the top receivers. I mean, that would add up as well. Throw to Bowers and the Arizona kid and Myers, and maybe invest in an offensive lineman or two. And like, okay, I can see this working.
I like the direction this is going. We'll see what domino falls there for the Las Vegas Raiders. Next, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've talked a lot about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who either don't know what the heck they're doing, Matt, or maybe slyly had a plan, and now we're seeing that plan enacted, firing their GM. The timing, very curious. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Talkspace. And when it comes to therapy, it's a game changer for a lot of people. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule, that is always the challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting help the way you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. It's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home, wherever you want to, when you want to, and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans. And for most insured members, there's $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. And as a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month. And show some support for the show while you're at it. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. So, later than they should have, by most accounts, by our accounts, and as one listener put it, maybe they're listening to this podcast in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars have now fired Trent Baalke, what looks to be probably 3 weeks too late. And they lost their option 1 in Ben Johnson. Did they lose their option 2 in Liam Cohen, or was the firing of Trent Baalke the reactionary move from the Jacksonville Jaguars saying, oh, wait, hold on, Liam Cohen. Okay, if this is the sticking point, don't sign that contract yet in Tampa as OC. We're going to fire Baalke and let's circle back and let's see if we can get this done. According to Mike Silver, the belief in the NFL circles is that the Jaguars coaching search is not limited to the last 2 candidates that they have second scheduled interviews with, and those both defensive coaches, right? Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham. And the belief was fortified by the news of Baalke's dismissal. So keep an eye on some other offensive coaches, because clearly offense is where they looked first with their coaching hires. Joe Brady and Kellen Moore, potential assistants that are still in the playoffs that could come back and be interviewed by the Jacksonville Jaguars once this playoff schedule is finished. What are your thoughts on all that first? I'm going to give you my hypothesis on what's going on potentially with the Jaguars.
I've given this some thought since we were talking yesterday too. Joe Brady to me is really attractive. I mean, going back to his LSU days with Burrow and Chase and those guys, I think Brady is doing wonderful things with the Bills, innovative stuff with 6 defensive linemen, running the football well. We always talk about Allen he's superhuman, and he is, but now he doesn't take sacks or turn the ball over. Doesn't even try throwing the ball down the field last week and still beats the Ravens. I think Brady has a lot to do with that. So again, I think he's a tremendous coordinator. Is he a leader of men? I don't know, but I think Brady could be in the mix here, or maybe the Raiders, or anywhere, Brady and Brady. But the Cohen stuff is interesting to me. And I just want to throw this at you. Then I want to hear your hypothesis, please. But If you were Cohen, would you rather return to the Bucks on a massive, bigger contract, same thing, roll it back, try to win the division, go be the coach of Trevor Lawrence, or go with your buddies in Vegas?
Well, buddies in Vegas is a double-edged sword, as we
right.
all
right.
That morning hangover can be rough. If you put on the tape, and no doubt these coaches are going to do some homework about the personnel. If you believe in Trevor Lawrence,
I think the league likes Lawrence a lot more than fans, media, analysts. I believe in. I'm not saying they think he's Mahomes, but I think the league still believes in him.
You're already in Florida, right? You like the Jacksonville area? Can your family live there? That would
pay taxes.
And look, a well-paid OC, you're still going to make $5-10 million more per year to be a head coach somewhere.
Oh, right? Yeah. You're still getting a pay raise over OC.
You must really not want one of these jobs to think you're going to get a much better job, or not. I think you're not ready for a job. And in that case, then you're probably staying. Otherwise, I would probably go to Jacksonville before I went to Vegas. But again, personal connections, if there is some really strong personal connections there for you, and you believe it is the right fit, and you believe you can go find yourself your next quarterback that is as good or better than the one you would inherit in Jacksonville, then go for it. I would lean Jaguars, though.
Me too.
And
especially if Baalke was a sticking point.
Well, the whole world knew that Trent Baalke was not an asset, not going to help you get the best head coach possible in Jacksonville.
Sure.
So were the Jaguars
except the Khan family, apparently.
I mean, were the Jaguars that dumb to not realize that, and then finally figured it out a few weeks into this thing? Then, if that's the case, you still probably don't want to go to that organization, right? Even if
you might have answered your own question,
right? But what if the plan was less rigid by the Jaguars? Not like Trent Baalke is leading this search. Maybe it was like, let's find out what our head coach wants. And it could be Baalke, it could be not Baalke. We're fine either way. And what if they went through this and they realized, okay, candidate that we really like, that you're about to interview for the second time, Robert Saleh, maybe. This is a sticking point for you. So who's going to conduct the interview instead? Well, guess what? Assistant GM Ethan Waugh for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's talk connections. He was with the San Francisco 49ers with Baalke, but he was a holdover. He was with 49ers as director of player personnel when Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. So let's talk personal connections there, right? And now Robert Saleh says, look, I'm comfortable with Ethan Waugh. I am not comfortable with Trent Baalke. And so now maybe this second interview ends with a hiring on Friday where you have a head coach that's now comfortable with the GM that's in-house. Maybe you still add another person like, say, Rand Carthon, who also he knows from his time with the 49ers, who's available now. And then another offensive coordinator like Clint Kubiak, who he knows from his time with the San Francisco 49ers. Throw a Kubiak offense that's Shanahan tree with your head coach that can go fix the defensive side of the ball. You have your young quarterback in place, which Robert Saleh had a really tough time figuring out in Jacksonville. I kind of like the fit right now. And if you start looking at connections, which is always the key with all of these hirings, there's a lot more connections now with Robert Saleh and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And who knows? Friday interview with Saleh. Maybe he doesn't get the job that day. You still try to interview one of those other offensive coaches. And if not, it's A or B. But I do think that the Baalke firing, to me, especially because Ethan Waugh is the guy that's there, I think it makes it more likely the next guy is going to get hired than they're going to double back with the old guy in Liam Cohen. So I think it's Saleh right now today if I had to bet on the next head coach of the Jaguars.
I love everything you laid out there, and that would make perfect sense to me, especially if they have a good offensive mind lined up to deal with Lawrence, which I'm sure they could find somewhere on the Shanahan tree, probably. That would add up to me. Couldn't help myself, though. Such deja vu from yesterday's show, BP, because remember I was talking about T-Dog from our Akron connections?
Yep.
Ethan Waugh's brother, Adam Waugh, and I were GAs together at Pitt.
There we go.
Way back when, 20 years ago. And then Adam came to Akron with us too, so the Waugh family was awesome. He always talked about his brother Ethan. I mean, I didn't realize that's what's going on. I'm like, good for these guys. These dudes I used to know 20 years ago.
How do you like the Jacksonville area, Matt? Maybe some connections down there for you. Maybe
My best buddy lives in Jacksonville.
Scouting.
I'm trying to get him to move back to Pittsburgh.
Scouting director and head of media podcasting, Matt Williamson.
This gig's too good. I don't know if they could beat it.
What if you could still do the same gig, but then they let you make a 7th round draft pick every year?
I'm in. No, I'm not in. That ship sailed
for Matt Williamson. Staying in Pittsburgh. He loves the snow, I guess. All right.
It's been cold here lately, too.
It was snowing in the South. You see, there's like 5 inches of snow in Mobile. They're about to have the Senior Bowl down there.
I'm planning on going. I mean, there's an obstruction in my family life right now that maybe I won't be able to go, but I have tickets planned. The Steelers are sending me there early Monday morning, and bring your winter jackets.
All right, next, a couple more notes on coach, GM, movement around the NFL, and we're going to open up the mailbag here, split the mailbag into 2 episodes, and some questions about where the Baltimore Ravens are recently ousted from the playoffs and quarterback Lamar Jackson. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Championship Sunday upcoming. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going for the rest of the playoffs, for the NFL draft props that are upcoming, which I love. NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball getting going. Pitchers and catchers going to report next month. All of it, you can find all of the action at FanDuel. And the app is easy to navigate. Variety of bets to keep the game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So you asked me a question, a hypothetical about, okay, you're Liam Cohen. Would you rather Tampa, Jacksonville, Las Vegas? I want to ask you the same thing, because there was a report that Kellen Moore turned down an opportunity to interview for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I heard that.
Job. Would you, if you were Kellen Moore, say no, Cowboys, no, thank you, but be like, oh, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville Jaguars, I want that? Because Mike Silver is talking about maybe Kellen Moore as one of those, interviewees next week, and some of these coaches will have time, even if they're in the Super Bowl. You get that extra week; they'll be able to have at least a Zoom call before anything else with some teams around the NFL. Kellen Moore, do you think he's saying no, this is not the offseason for me, or he's just like, I don't like Jerry Jones and I don't want to deal with the Cowboys crap?
I think there's a chance for that. I also think there's a chance, unlike Ben Johnson, he says, man, I don't really want to compete against the Eagles. They're in our division. I have great respect for what they're doing. It's going to be hard to go past those guys, where the AFC South is much smoother path. Even though and Jaden Daniels is in your division too.
I was going to say, Jaden Daniels shows up too. And it's like, well, this is not going to be fun for the next decade.
Yeah, I'll try to. We could. I think all of us would take Stroud over Lawrence, but we could at least argue that a coach might want Lawrence to be the one in that division he most wants to work with, or right there with Stroud at least still. I mean, again,
certainly a more competitive situation if you believe in the quarterback again. And, a lot of people do still believe in Trevor Lawrence, and he's obviously not a garbage quarterback. He won 9 games his first 2 seasons, right? Before the debacle of last year. I guess not his first 2 seasons. How many games did they win with Urban Meyer? God, what?
No,
you feel
not many that year, right.
Now that you kind of go through the timeline.
Yeah. The film's not great, but you can make some excuses for him. I wouldn't mind being his defense attorney either.
You walk into the NFL with the worst team in the league, and then you immediately get saddled with Trent Baalke, the GM, and Urban Meyer, the head coach.
Other than that, smooth sailing. Right.
Not a great start. So he's not ruined by now. And that's another factor with Las Vegas. If you're Liam Cohen, would you rather have already a good quarterback and AFC South competition, or would you rather have 0 quarterback and 3 what looks like now a third pretty good quarterback in that division have to start there in the AFC West. I mean, that is a tough ask.
All right. Again, there's Herbert. You can say what you want about Knicks, but of course Mahomes. But those three teams also have big time successful coaches.
Yeah,
the AFC South's pretty appealing to me. The more we talk through this, let's go to the Jags. All right.
Absolutely, especially with Baalke gone. So it might improve their chances for whatever their head coach they decide on. Whether it Baalke, maybe Joe Brady gets into the mix, maybe Kellen Moore gets in the mix.
Yeah, maybe it's more Brady or Cohen, not one of the defensive guys.
Or
Saleh.
You know, as a really good coach and a really good quarterback, the Baltimore Ravens. But they are home again now as we approach Championship Sunday, and we've got a couple of questions this week about the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And it's funny because Lamar Jackson has become a Rorschach test, because on one hand, 3-time potentially MVP, he's at least got 2. He might have his 3rd this year, and he can't quite get it done in the playoffs. You know, whether you blame it on him or you don't blame it on him. And our mailbag is similar, because on one hand, we have a listener, Joey Bag of Donuts, who's like, are the Ravens ruining Lamar Jackson's chances at a championship? And then another listener is like, well, is Lamar Jackson ruining the Baltimore Ravens' chances at a championship? So let's go to the exact questions here, and I'm trying to find it because I got so much stuff saved about these playoff games, and I want to get the wording correct on these questions. Here we go. Nope, that's not it either. The question from Joey Bag of Donuts, frequent listener and question asker. So we appreciate all the question askers. Apologies to the ones we didn't get to. A lot of coaching news this week. This from Joey Bag of Donuts. Is the Ravens window closing? They're really wasting Lamar Jackson's prime years. Let's start there. What are your thoughts on that?
So, Joey, you listen to all my outlets, and you know that I often talk about how difficult it is to win a playoff game. And I would even take that a step further of, in the AFC currently, with the superstar quarterbacks, including Lamar, how difficult the road is. And I think, BP, you're old enough, I'm old enough to remember when we were saying these things about Peyton Manning. Man, Peyton Manning, really good quarterback. You want him on your fantasy team, but gets to the playoffs and can't beat Brady. And I think Ben eliminated him one time. You know, Hall of Fame quarterbacks, going to New England was no walk in the park at that point to play Brady and Belichick and those guys in the snow, etc. And I think that's where we're at with Lamar, that in 10 years, we'll look back and be like, that dude got 4 MVPs, 2 rings, is the easiest first ballot Hall of Famer that we'll see. But I do think if you look at his history with the Ravens, there was a stretch, and I think that time is gone and they've figured it out, where they really ignored wide receivers. They did not surround him when he was on a rookie deal. Warren Sharp wrote a big, long article about it like 2 years ago, of not making things easy on your rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. And I think there was some of that. And I'm looking at their assets to improve this offseason. They're low on the list. They don't have a lot of cap space or flexibility. They have some picks, as usual. But Ronnie Stanley's up, and they're going to make some other decisions, as every team does. I don't think they're wasting it at all, though. I mean, the bottom line is we're one of the best teams in the league. We may have been the best team in the league. We just didn't win the last game. Let's do exactly what we're doing. Maybe replace Tucker or Stanley. I mean, little tweaks, but we are not going to make conceptual changes in any way. And yes, he made more mistakes, and the Ravens made way more mistakes than the Bills. But that overthrow was a miscommunication. I mean, he thought Bateman was running a go, and he broke it off. Blame either one if you want. And the other one was a uncharacteristic. Well, he does fumble, but I mean, awful weather fumble.
Yeah.
And Allen didn't do that.
Right. The ball is oblong.
And they all still almost won.
Yeah. So you get better on defense and let Lamar keep doing what he's doing. Maybe the ball doesn't bounce the other direction. It bounces one of your offensive linemen instead. Next year, guess what? You're in the championship.
I mean, he was taking that game over in the second half.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't. The turnovers are big, though. And as Steelers Burner puts it, he says, all right, you got to admit Lamar had 2 bad turnovers on good drives that turned into Buffalo points in a 2-point loss. Most of the second half, Baltimore took the ball out of Lamar's hand, gave it to Henry. Buffalo seemed to not to cease to put the ball in Allen's hand and say, go win us the big game. Okay, so what are your thoughts there? That he's basically saying they're in different leagues as playoff quarterbacks. One team leans on their quarterback and the other one did not. I don't know if I buy that, but I will say that the turnovers, first of all, a little spoiler, turnovers pretty important in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, listen tomorrow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're going to get the exact same question next week's mailbag if Allen loses.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he has a fumble or they lose the turnover battle 1-0, we're going to have these exact same conversations. Because Mahomes is awesome and Allen's awesome and Jackson's awesome, you know?
I think most teams would kill to have Lamar Jackson. You got to get there first. I think he's gonna get his window, not even close. But I will say, like, is Lamar Jackson going to be like Aaron Rodgers, 40 years old, still playing NFL football? You know, when he doesn't have that dynamic athleticism, will he just be a dart thrower from the pocket? Will, you know, Lamar 4.0 at that point be that? I have no idea, but the window is wide open for a superstar quarterback in a really good organization like the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I always have this conversation. Do you think quarterback X will get a ring? You should always lean towards the under. Because especially with Mahomes existing,
it's really hard.
But I'm definitely taking the over on Lamar.
Put it this way: if Lamar and the Ravens were in the NFC, it would be Lamar against Patrick Mahomes every single year in the Super Bowl.
I bet they'd be alive and they'd be favored hosting the Eagles right now or Washington, exactly. Right? Yeah. And he might have a ring or already been to the Super Bowl once or twice.
I think people don't realize the AFC juggernaut in the playoffs right now. Like this is crazy.
It's historic.
Yeah.
I mean, and Burrow can't even get in. Yeah, and he's as good as all those guys, right?
Next episode of Peacock and Williamson, we are making picks, previewing Championship Sunday. It is the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles, and it is the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got notes galore. This remarkable turnaround for the Washington Commanders. And tons of notes on these games. And we will make our picks on Friday's episode. So stay tuned. Peacock and Williamson.